Hey guys, it's Clovis. Ranked games can sometimes feel like they're totally out of your control. Anytime you pick someone who fights, you feel like you're missing the ability to push, and vice versa. So optimally, if you want to win ranked games more consistently, you want to pick yourself a hero that has the potential to both kill enemy heroes and push towers. This is where Night Stalker comes in. Roughly a month ago, I started playing Night Stalker way more often, as he has immense kill potential, and with a level advantage, and even just a few items, he becomes an immensely strong pusher, especially in the late stages of the game. The synergy of having a hero that is able to threaten killing heroes on the map and being able to deal tower damage is that you can push immediately after you get pickoffs. While this seems like common sense, a game-winning move in the Archon bracket and lower is to take a fight, kill some enemy heroes, then push immediately after when enemies have no resources to stop you. If you're able to pull off this playstyle, you'll find yourself winning games far easier than you used to be able to. For context, I've always fluctuated between the Legend and Ancient brackets. I've won games in these brackets and I've lost games in these brackets, but last calibration I landed in the Archon bracket and I found myself struggling to get back out of the Archon bracket. That was until I started picking Night Stalker. I've been literally first picking Night Stalker as a position 3, farming the off lane, and I have a 73% win rate on the hero over the last month, including 26 matches, both ranked and unranked. I'm not an immensely talented, mechanically skilled player, so I've been using what I know about the game and pushing the limits of this hero to gain any advantage I can. I've also used other things to help influence the result of the game, so in this video I'm going to share those with you, in addition to showing you what I do as Night Stalker, how I control the game, and teach you guys some stuff about the hero and how to play the game as him. And hopefully you can take this to your ranked games and win some MMR for yourselves. Alright, so before I go into more detail about the skills themselves so we can learn the hero a bit better, I just want to go through the skill build quickly. You'll notice the first thing we level is the Q. That's because our other two spells are pretty much useless at level 1. We do max the passive Hunter in the Night first, however. At level 7 we want this at level 4. That's our main strength. Even though getting a level of it in level 2 seems pointless, the point of it is we want it to be level 2 by level 4 and then level 3 by level 5. You'll also notice that we start leveling the silence before we end up maxing out either spell. In almost all games you want to max out the silence before you actually finish maxing Void. You just want that second point early for that kill potential, the being able to interrupt TPs, but once you hit level 8 and you're moving around the map more, you want that silence to help you actually pick off supports and stuff like that. After that, your options wide open a bit. Here you can see at level 9 I've took the third point in Void. That's because the most valuable point in Void is actually the third level due to the way its damage scales is a bit differently. Third is the most valuable point, but if you need more seconds on your silence, just keep maxing that, and then when that's maxed you go back and get the third and the fourth point in Void. You're going to be maxing this out later on anyways, but that's the only difference here, is whether you're picking this or not. You generally do want silence at level 8 to move around and kill supports, however. And then after that you can make the decision if you want to keep maxing that out or go back for the third point in Void and then max out your silence. For the ultimate you want to get it at every single level possible, and for the talent tree you want to take these same talents every single game. You want 200 health at level 10, 15 strength at level 15, 50 damage at level 20, and 140 Hunter in the Night attack speed at level 25. This is a skill build and talent build you should be aiming for every single game. So item build wise, this is a general guide on what timings you want these items at. The order you want is also very important. The first item you want to build is phase boots. Of course, these are going to provide you with the bonus move speed. The phase active is very good in addition to your passive move speed from the Hunter in the Night passive. The damage goes very far with the attack speed, and the armor just helps you tank in general. You got a pretty decent health pool, but you also want to tank right clicks, you want to tank tower hits as well. These boots are literally built for him, so there's no real other option. You notice in this I've actually bought the chainmail in lane. I've also bought the ring of protection in lane. The reason for that is just for lane sustain. With your base armor and these two items you have 11, 12 armor in the laning stage of the game, so you can kind of just sit in lane and shrug off harass. but you do eventually want to finish these phase boots, hopefully by the first night. Keep in mind that with the maxing passive of Hunter in the Night, even if you don't buy boots by the first night, you're still faster than enemy heroes. But with the phase boots complete, you have a lot more damage and a lot more move speed advantage to get into a kill fast and then back out of it really fast. Finish your Ring of Asilius as well. Sometimes I finish it in lane, depends on the lane. This just gives you extra value damage as well as that mana regen. Mana regen is very, very important. That's also why we buy Medallion of Courage. You get more mana regen. The armor for you isn't too important. It's actually, of course, it's very, very useful if they're trying to attack you. You have a lot of armor with the health you have and the stout shield and the armor you have with these items on top of your base armor. It's very hard to kill you, but of course, the main reason why you're building this is to help you kill enemy heroes. Use Medallion of Courage on a support, especially any hero that has low armor. You drop them into the negatives and suddenly you do a lot of damage to them very rapidly, especially considering we have our passive max usually by the time we have phase boots and Medallion. So at this point we're basically going to walk around, Medallion and people, cast a silence on them if we have to, and just right click them to death, and this is the most efficient way to get kills in the early game. After you've bought these really valuable damage and mana regen items with a bunch of armor as well, you can comfortably buy a Blink Dagger, and Blink Dagger is basically the key to this entire build. Blinking on people with the silence and rapidly killing them by shredding them to pieces with your right clicks and the Medallion is just, it's really game winning. You could sub it out for a Shadow Blade, but I personally think Blink Dagger is better. There's no time for the enemy to react if you just blink on them with the silence already active. And Blink Dagger costs no mana. So considering your mana pool is quite small, if you Shadow Blade to try and get kills and you keep using it, you're just going to keep emptying out your mana pool and you might not have mana to cast your spells. With the Blink though, you always have it, even if they mana burn you. If you can keep walking away when your ult's up, you can just blink out of the fight. But the main thing is you can literally just blink on top of a target, even if they have sentries or whatever. They have no time to react if you blink on them with the silence up, and that's what gets you kills that most other heroes in the game honestly can't. There's really not much you can do against that combo. After this, you can finish other items like Vlad's. I'll go into the more options in a second. BKB is the most common item I build after this set. While BKB is primarily a defensive item, you actually get quite a bit of value damage out of it. With the 24 damage plus a 10 strength, that's 34 damage total, and that goes very far considering you have the attack speed steroid of your passive. But the most important thing about this is obviously mitigating all that, any stun, any disable on you, just being able to freely kill any target you pick. That on top of your high armor, especially later in the game when you got like AC or whatever, you mitigate all the magic damage. You're pretty much impossible to kill. So you get a Black King bar after these items, you can just pretty much pick a target, blink on them with your silence, pop BKB and just kill that guy, and there's just nothing the enemy can do about it. You also notice here I go for a Solar Crest. Solar Crest is a game-winning item in this bracket. You should build it more if you haven't, especially if you're position 3. You move around, and if you're with any ally pushing, especially mainly your carry, you can just Solar Crest them. They get 80 bonus attack speed, and you can siege really, really, really fast with it, even if that's like the only real item you have. So you notice the items we have, especially in this game, they're not only useful to me, but the Solar Crest and the Vlads are also useful for my team when I'm around them. And that's very important because you want to be self-sufficient while being able to help your team after you get these kills. The primary core item after your Black King bar, most games, pretty much any game you can build it, is Assault Cuirass. This has amazing synergy with Black King bar. If you consider in a fight that mitigates all the magic damage, your Assault Cuirass will give you even more armor to mitigate all physical damage, but obviously the armor reduction is the main thing. So this is amazing in fights. It's not only boosting your team, but it also just boosts your own ability to kill enemies, as well as your own ability to kill towers, even if you're alone. Just on your lonesome, pushing a lane in after getting a pick off, you can push very, very rapidly, especially when you're at level 25 and you've got your plus 140 Hunter in the Night attack speed and the level 3 ultimate with the 150 damage on top of all your other talents and your natural high strength gain. You need very minimal items to do a lot of damage, even just with, The BKB and the AC being your two core items, you can just rapidly push at level 25. It's very insane. Another really important item, usually I go for this instead of AC if my team builds AC, or I just go for this after Assault Cuirass, is Basher into Abyssal Blade. When you're attacking that rapidly, obviously you're going to proc a lot of bashes, but this basically becomes your void when the enemy has Black King bars. It's your way to interrupt TV scrolls when you use the active of Abyssal Blade. But yeah, primarily, obviously, Basher is just to... You're going to be blinking on people anyways, and right-clicking rapidly, so you may as well just get that to lock them down even more, and yeah, it's just pretty much a no-brainer to get Skull Basher on this guy if you can comfortably get it. You don't need it in every single game, so sometimes things take priority over that, but in games where you can get it, you should, especially when you finish that Abyssal Blade. I think like every team should have an Abyssal Blade, because later on when they have BKBs or any form of magic immunity, you can just Abyssal them and then, you know, lock them down. Considering Black King Bar is people's best defense against you, especially with your silence, the Blink Silence combo, being able to control people through BKB means they have no answer to you whatsoever. Another really good answer to that is actually a Nullifier. If you blink on someone, pop Nullifier with a silence, they're muted, they can't cast spells, so because they're muted they can't pop BKB to cast their spells, and Nullify in general is very good on him. It's quite expensive, so I don't buy it that often, but it's a very, very good late game option. The large damage component of it synergizes very well with your attack speed, so if you ever have a chance to get that item, Night Stalker is a very, very good Nullifier carrier. Alright, so not so long ago I mentioned that Night Stalker is nearly useless in the daytime, and this is important to know as it's the only time you're really vulnerable. At 5 minutes, Night hits. After 10 minutes, you have level 6 and be able to pop your ult in an emergency. But for the first 5 minutes of the game, you don't have the ultimate, and you're just going to be useless. So your Q deals half damage, it only slows for 1.25 seconds, doesn't even mini-stun. Your silence only silences for 3 seconds, and it's like melee range. And your passive doesn't actually do anything at all. So we need to accept the fact that we have virtually no aggressive capabilities for the first 5 minutes of the game that we're in the lane. However, we aren't completely useless. We have to play the lane as safe as we can. Considering whether you're in the off lane, it can be quite difficult, but we have some tools to help us. So Night Stalker has a high health pool, high base armor, very decent base damage. The only caveat to this is that you're very, very slow, especially before you get boots, and you're still quite likely to take a lot of harass because you're just going to be sitting there quite slow. So the main priority is actually to bring a lot of regen to lane. Starting items are very important, and if your Archon are lower, a very consistent problem with players in this bracket is weak starting items. You don't want items to get kills, that's not happening. You don't want Orb of Venom, any of these items. You're basically just itemizing to stay in lane, especially on this hero. What is essential for Night Stalker in the offlane, even with an ally with heals, is 2 sets of tangos and a stout shield. This is 100%, I buy these 100% of the time. The stout shield on top of your base armor will mitigate lots of physical damage harass you take in lane, and the tangos will allow you to continuously keep your health above about 60 to 70% so that you're not in threat of dying during the lane. You'll have just over 200 gold from your starting gold after these items, but you want to leave approximately 100, so that gives you about 100 to spend. What I usually buy on top of the 2 sets of tangos and stout shield is a healing salve. In case the enemy decides to just use all their spells on you and drop you really low, you can TP back to your tier 1 tower and pop a healing salve and get yourself back up and then re-enter the lane. If they don't have stuns, that's quite easy for you to do that, so keep that in mind. This might seem like an amount, redundant amount of regen, but it's not. Any regen you don't use in lane, you're very likely to use after the laning phase, when you go around getting kills, towers, even if you take a second to farm. You're pretty much guaranteed to get use out of this starting regen that you buy, so you may as well just buy this stuff. If you don't want to buy the salve, if you think the lane's going to be kind of easy and you do have heals in your lane, you can always swap this out for 2 branches or a branch and a mango, but you still want to keep roughly 100 gold. With the amount of harass you might take, what I do in almost all my games is actually purchase the chainmail component of my phase boots before the boots themselves, and a ring of protection as well, which you're going to build into the Basilius. Buy those two from the side shop, and you'll have like 12 armor or something in lane, so it'll be so hard for them to actually harass you, and you take like very little damage from creeps. You can also get extra use of the courier by porting your Sage's Mask and your Blades of Attack at the same time. So between those two items being ported to you in the one courier use, you can complete your phase boots and the Ring of Basilius by purchasing the remaining components from the side shop. Each of these components help you in your lane, and you should purchase them in the order which makes the most immediate difference in the lane to help you win the lane. Now, the reason why we leave 100 starting gold is under the assumption you get 2 of the 4 starting bounties. By the time you walk to lane, you'll still have enough gold to buy a Quelling Blade in your lane to ensure you get the last hits against the enemy team. The important thing about the lane is that you get all the last hits you can as safe as you can, in addition to any denies you can get as well. You have a pretty high base damage which allows you to deny easier, but with that on top of the Quelling Blade, it's extremely difficult for opponents to deny your last hits. If you can stay in lane and out CS your opponent, it's legitimately game winning. You're going to make the game so much easier for you when the first Knights hits. If you have a good lane, the first Knight you'll be the most powerful hero in the game, and their carry and or support will be 2 of the weakest heroes in the game. So your goal for the lane is sustaining yourself to get XP, win creep score if possible, then at 5 minutes when the Knight is about to start, the bounty runes will spawn. This is the perfect timing for you, as if the enemy approach the 5-minute bounty rune, even if they manage to take them, they're in an extremely bad position. Knight's going to tick over, they're far away enough from their shrine and their tower and enemy heroes for you to simply just right-click them to death, void them if they try and TP, and assuming you kill them, you can immediately threaten the carry after grabbing the other bounty rune. Bounty runes are extremely important in games, by the way. If you're a player in a low bracket who doesn't value them, get into the habit of prioritizing the bounty runes wherever you can, especially as Night Stalker, because other heroes are going to be collecting them, so you can try and get free kills for any hero that decides to go for them, and potentially even grab that bounty rune after that kill. Alright, so the first bounties have spawned and it's now nighttime. At this point, you probably have 2 or 3 points in your passive, and you can now threaten almost any hero in the game. One of the most sensible things to do is to actually stay in your lane and threaten the enemy. If the enemy support has gone missing, you can easily go and hunt them down as they're away from their allies or any form of safety. If you want, you can ward near enemy camps to help you determine if they're doing that or not, if they're pulling. But if support is missing from the map at nighttime, it only takes you a few seconds to walk over and have a look. If you find them, kill them. If you don't, report them missing, then you threaten the enemy carry because their support is not nearby. If the enemy support has actually left the lane, you have to punish this by killing the enemy carry that was left alone. It's your job to do so. Now is as good a time as any to make a big impact and start to snowball. Create space for your team and all that. If you consider that the enemy lane now needs 2 heroes relatively close together in order just to not die solo to you, this frees up a lot of space for your team. Now your team can play 4v3 essentially. The enemy probably won't attempt to kill you either, because you're probably just going to walk away with your immense move speed with the phase active and, you know, the passive, and just waste people's rotation, even if they rotate 2 or more heroes. And even if they force you out of lane, it will take a minimum of, like 3 heroes to kick you out of the lane completely just sitting there, giving your other lanes even more free space. And as a fallback option, like literally the worst case scenario is you farm neutrals at night, which you do extremely fast with your passive. The important thing about the first Knight as Night Stalker is threatening kills on the map. Don't waste your time by running mid or TPing when you can just simply dominate the lane you're already in. Let the enemy try and make the rotations and waste their time trying to solve the problem you've created by being immensely strong. You usually only need 1 kill to make the opponent scared of you. What I like to do is periodically leave the lane, usually after a kill in the lane, which suddenly makes you disappear from the map. And then enemy heroes in your lane will assume you're attempting a gank on another lane. Those lanes will play scared, and the lane you were in, sometimes they might feel like they're safe because they think you've gone to rotate, but they're not safe. You can just walk back in the lane and kill them again, and just disappear again, make everyone scared, go back in and kill them again. Yeah, you just want to apply as much pressure as possible, with as little effort as possible. That is a game-winning Night Stalker play, and it will be that way for a lot of the game. So the difference between the first and the second day is that now you should have your ultimate. Apart from that, there's not much difference. At any given point, you can pop your ultimate to kill a hero, even if it requires you to TP or rotate, but that's at the sacrifice of having that ultimate now be on cooldown, and the enemy knowing you won't be able to do anything for almost 2 minutes after you pop your ultimate. So what I'm saying is sometimes the threat of you being able to pop your ultimate is enough for the enemies to not try to do much against you. In Archon or lower, people won't play around this until they've realized you've used it, and then they have time to do stuff where you're useless. So try as best as you can to leave your ultimate off cooldown unless it's guaranteed to net you a kill, win a fight, get a tower. Only use it to take an objective that creates space for you after the time, because like when it expires, you can actually safely farm in that downtime if you just use your ultimate to take an objective. As far as functioning during the day without your ultimate, all you can really do is farm, whether that's safely in lane or you go to neutrals. By this point you should have your Medallion to help you farm. You can use that on neutrals or even on creeps and a creep wave to just push it out more. Your ultimate goal on the second day is to farm your Blink Dagger, so that at next night you can threaten kills with your Blink Dagger and Silence combo. Alright, so now it's the second night. We should have a point in our Silence, and we should be close to getting our Blink Dagger. Once we've got our Blink Dagger, this allows us to jump on targets with a Silence and kill them. It's important to have vision and or use your knowledge of the game to acknowledge where enemies are in a bad position. Keep tabs on your minimap on heroes that are capable of saving allies or being a problem. If they're showing on the map, you're pretty much free to take targets. If your teammates aren't warding, you can usually just buy yourself one, even a Smoke of Deceit, maybe pop your ultimate with your smoke and walk around, and you can do this, you can scout through trees, and if you see a target during this, you can just quickly kill them, plan a ward when you're there, or you know, do it in the opposite order. Any squishy hero in general, that, you know, some of them like Weaver that rely on escape to get out, or just any support that's usually just very weak and the only defense they have is disable you, you can just cast your Silence, immediately blink on them, cast Medallion on them and right click them to death, save Void for if they try to TP out. There are very few heroes that can survive this combo, considering you have up to 30 seconds to just repeatedly right click them. The only problem with this is that the enemy have more time to rotate, but by the time enough enemies have rotated, if you have vision over them TPing in, or you see them TPing in from any other vision you have on the map, such as TPing from the lane, you can always just back out and you've forced a multi-man rotation at worst. And that's especially considering if you're doing this under their shrine and they've all TP'd back to their shrine and you get out, you basically made all their heroes just leave their lane to just go back deep into their own jungle and just basically be there and then be useless and walk back to the lane or whatever. The best case scenario is to kill someone and get out safely after forcing rotations on top of that. But what happens quite often is that you just straight up kill someone and their team acknowledges that that hero is dead and doesn't even bother saving them. Remember that the sole benefit of killing someone in the jungle is that they're away from the safety of their teammates and their towers and shrines if they're not, you know, directly next to them. But yeah, remember you are taking a risk by going in and doing this, so you need to be very mindful about rotations and stuff like that, because if you play around those, it's even more advantageous to yourself. So just go for these kills and don't feed, and you're just going to start to win the lane extremely rapidly. A safer and more goal-oriented option is rotating to a lane and getting a kill. Going for a kill in a lane where you already have heroes makes it that much easier to knock down targets within the space of level 1 Silence. One example is enemy mid heroes that are still sitting mid, such as Ember Spirit or Storm Spirit. You combined with your mid hero should have enough damage to kill them within your Silence duration if you just cast Silence and blink on top of them. You medallion them as well, you just repeatedly hit them with your mid and they can cast their spells too. Either lane you go for, the best aspect of entering a lane specifically to find a kill is that you're near an objective, and you can try to push the tower after you get that kill. Even without too much resources, even just with Medallion, you can even use the Medallion on a creep to tank the tower while you push. You also have your nighttime physical damage. Even if your ult isn't up, you can still hit the tower quite a lot. If your ultimate is still up, you haven't used it yet, you can use it to help kill the tower, and as you're hitting the tower, you provide vision over the trees around it, so if anyone tries to TP in to defend the tower, you can see it. If the enemy try to TP in after you've already picked someone off, you can probably literally just go over them, you pop your silence, and just walk over them, and they either cancel their TP because they realize they're going to die if they don't, or they TP in, they're silenced, you Medallion them, you Q them, they're not going to TP out because they just TP'd in, your allies are there, you're tanking the tower, so they can just, sit behind you and just rapidly attack them and cast all their spells and just instantly kill the guy who just TP'd in, and you pretty much have a free tower. Overall, the second night where you have Phase, Medallion, and Blink Dagger, this is the window where you have to make the most impact, so you need to make it count. While later on you can make lots of plays on your own game and the game changes, this second night really dictates the pace of the game thereafter, so use this window to take as many objectives as you can, and use your ability to kill enemy heroes extremely easily to allow you to take those objectives. So after this stage of the game, you've posed enough of a threat to scare the enemy from you. During daytime, communicate to your team that you can't join fights or participate in fights without using your ultimate. If it's daytime and your ult is on cooldown, tell your teammates to play safe. If you don't communicate your advantage with your team, especially in lower brackets, they might get carried away and think they're stronger than they actually are, so try to communicate with your team that you don't want to fight yet. If you have your ultimate off cooldown, you can communicate to your team that you can come and help or pop your ultimate to take a fight or an objective, but you only have a small window to do so. And if it's still a few minutes until nighttime and you need to keep your ult off cooldown for defensive reasons or for the sake of having it ready again to fight at night, communicate to your team to take it easy just for a few minutes, to just chill out and relax a little bit, and that you'll be ready to join them in fights and destroy the enemy heroes in a few minutes when it's nighttime again. Communication is super important in the game overall. It's game winning. If you feel like you know more than your team, you should be captaining your team. But this is even more important and even better as an offlaner, because you can communicate with your team what targets you're picking, who needs to be killed, what lanes need to be paid attention to. When you're moving around and doing stuff, you call the shots. You also communicate if you need help killing people. Sometimes you can't kill people within a silence duration, so you sometimes do need your team to assist you. If you're zoning people out, communicate that you're zoning people out, that they're silenced. It's especially important as someone like Night Stalker that you're communicating with your team when he is one of the lesser picked heroes, and he needs to play around these timing windows that no other heroes need to worry about, because your team probably won't be wary of this, especially if you're Archon or lower. In these brackets, many players' knowledge of Night Stalker is quite low, and while this plays into your favour with the enemy team not respecting your threat on the map, it can also be your undoing, as your opponents might try to play the same game at daytime, when essentially that's like a 4v5 game if it is daytime. Late game, you still want to threaten the map, keep the enemy forced to their side of the map, show briefly to push in waves, then quickly disappear, and as you push waves in and the enemy TP to respond to them, you can seek targets in other places of the map. If your team is behind, what you can do is try to look for pickoffs on the enemy map. With the risk in mind, you need to be careful doing this, but if you force rotations back to the enemy side of the map, you force them away from your own objectives, and you create more space for the team. After playing a lot of these mind games, one game-winning play you can do is smoke with the team. As you smoke and you get closer to the enemy side, you pop your ultimate, and popping your ultimate will give you vision over targets that might not actually have vision over you due to the trees blocking their vision, even if they're uphill. So this allows you to easily identify targets, the position people are in, and initiate on a target, the most important target. When you play the initiator, especially when you have BKB and your ult still up, you can sort of fake back and re-enter the fight if you need to. You can soak up spells and just general focus while your teammates follow up behind you. Just try not to get too far ahead of your allies. because, you know, you might die and they can't follow up on it. If you smoke gank with your ult and use that vision advantage to gain the advantage to start off the fight, or while the lanes are pushed in, you can take an objective immediately after. If you have AC and level 25 and you get enough pickoffs, you can take full sets of racks. If it's late enough and the enemy don't buy back, you can sometimes even just straight up end the game. That's also the case if you kill enemy heroes that just used to buy back and they don't have it anymore. You can just go straight for the end in some situations. Sometimes you can do sneaky stuff, especially in the lower brackets if you're confident enough, such as taking a set of racks in a different lane as a teamfight breaks out, but you will need the level 25 attack speed talent and popular ultimate to do that really, really fast push. But if you're in that situation with your ult and level 25, you push so fast that you can take a full set of racks within the duration of a teamfight. And in this moment, if the teamfight actually ends in your favor when you weren't there while you're pushing the whole time, you can continue pushing after that and the game can literally just end. Alright, so that's all for this video. I did try to condense it as best as possible. I'd written way more on it, but it was kind of a redundant amount of information, so I might have skipped some out by trying to condense it. This video was catered to players in the mid to lower brackets who are looking for a hero that can win them ranked games when all else fails. As I mentioned before, I have a win rate of above 70% with this hero in and outside of ranked games, and I'm literally first picking it. While in very high brackets, the pick can get punished, the lower you go, the less people know about it, and the less people that know about it, the more you can get away with it. As I mentioned before, I'm not this immensely skilled, mechanically skilled player, and you don't have to be to play Night Stalker either. You just need to know a bit more than the enemies know, and if you know more than your teammates know, you also need to communicate and captain them, and you have the tools to do so. You have the tools to kill people, get pickoffs, you can take objectives, and if you're snowballing and stomping, which is quite easy as Night Stalker, your teammates are more likely to listen to you, just provided you're not rude and aggressive. As long as you know you're very nice about it and you're doing pretty well as Night Stalker, your team are going to listen to what you have to say. And even if you're not this ultimate tier 1 team drafter, captain, pro player that makes a right decision every single time, if your team are all on the same page and communicating, you're going to be doing a lot better than the enemy team that are probably flaming their support for feeding you too much because they just don't know how strong Night Stalker is and they just repeatedly die to it. So anyways, just try to win your lane, buy your early game items, buy your Blink Dagger, go around killing people, call shots, and the more success you have, the more your teammates trust the communication. And if you're the type of player who genuinely feels like they should be in a higher bracket because you know some things your bracket don't, I genuinely think this is the hero for you. And if I'm honest, if you're going to the effort, even if you're in the Archon bracket or lower, if you go into the effort of seeking YouTube videos that help you with this sort of thing, you probably do already know a bit more than most players in your brackets do know. Because a lot of lower bracket players kind of just play the game casually and don't really seek this sort of insight and game winning information. So pick Night Stalker, enjoy your free MMR, and I genuinely hope it works for you as well as it worked for me. I got out of Archon to Legend, and I plan on getting to Ancient with this build. So yeah, good luck guys, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.